we started developing the Harmonium, we wanted to find ways that we could actually enhance the sound and make it do things that the pure Harmonium couldn't do. The first thing we decided to do is add vibrato. This adds some expressivity and movement to, especially to long notes. You can easily change the intensity of the vibrato just by moving the slider here. It can also be mapped to a continuous controller by right-clicking. By default, it's mapped to CC number 2 or the breath controller. If you find that you actually want to change the sound of the vibrato, you can go into this menu here. The vibrato actually includes vibrato and tremolo. The vibrato portion is the pitch here, which is the frequency modulation over time. And the tremolo portion is the volume or decibel modulation over time. Let's hear what both of those things sound like. So let's start with 0% pitch. And 0% volume. Usually the most musical solution is to have a combination of both. I'm going to turn both of them up to 60%. Okay. You can also change the rate. You'll see by default it's set to 4 Hertz. Fade-in allows us to only apply the vibrato to longer notes. So by slowly fading in the vibrato, we make sure that the moving notes aren't as affected as the longer notes where we really want to add some interest. This means that when we play a melody, it can sound very musical and it sounds quite authentic as a cello player. Someone would slowly fade in the vibrato. Let's play that again without vibrato. And with vibrato one more time. Another thing that we added was an oscillator. The swell, which I talked about in a previous video, is a flap which covers up the reeds of the harmonium and it can open and close. We realized quite soon that it could be really interesting to be able to oscillate that opening and closing. So if you turn it on here, click here, let's hear what it sounds like. So we'll turn the intensity all the way up and watch it oscillate this control here. And this way, again, you can add movement without actually having to continuously move controls yourself. The intensity knob here changes how much the swell is affected. The rate changes the speed at which it plays. And again, you can change them to dotted or triplets as well. By default, it's synced to tempo, but we can also turn that off, in which case it's just done by millisecond. Phase changes where in the sine wave the oscillation begins. Perhaps it starts at the beginning at 0 degrees and goes up and down. Or it starts halfway through and it goes down first, but you can do any variation thereof. The smooth control here changes whether all of the oscillation is always displayed. So when it is off, you'll see that it took a while for the oscillation to start because actually the top half of the oscillation takes the swell out of range. When we turn it on, it adds this buffer, it adds this padding to make sure that the full oscillation is always in range, and so you're always hearing the full rotation. That also means that as we change the intensity, the amount of buffer that you see here changes. So if we're at 50%, moving the swell slider would only move it halfway through the whole range of motion. You can fade in and fade out the sound. And again, this works either with sync to tempo or not. So maybe you want to fade in for 2 bars and fade out for 2 bars. In this case, it would sound like this. You can trigger it with different events. So with first note, it's triggered as soon as you play a note, but subsequent notes don't re-trigger the oscillation. Each note works a little bit differently. I'm going to turn the fade in and fade out off. Each note triggers it with each note that you press, of course. You can trigger it with a CC number of your choice. You can choose it here. Or you can trigger with the transport. So this is when you start playing back, perhaps at bar 1. It will start at bar 1 and will continue till you stop playback in your sequencer. The next thing we built in to really help you customize the sound is the effects. The effects rack is fully customizable, which means that we can move effects around in any position that we want. If I click here and I want to actually move, if I want to move the filter up here, I can click here and choose the filter and it moves it up here. Controls stay all the same, but it just moves it in place. There's 8 effects available to us: cabinet, distortion, equalizer, filter, phaser, reverb, rotator, and saturator. We don't have time to go through all of these. But it is important to note that you can put them in any order that you want, and each one of them also has presets built in. So for filter, for instance, we have low pass, so let's put a low pass intense, or a low pass mild. There's all kinds of different filters available to us. We can change the cutoff and the resonance. For equalizer, we have deep, warm, bright, thin, and mid presets already made for you. Let's add bright intense. And let's try warm intense. For reverb, let's try ambience intense. And let's try scoring stage. There's many different types of reverbs available: ambience, chambers, effects, halls, plates, rooms, spaces. And for each one of those, there are 6 actual impulses available as well. The rotator is a very useful one for, let's change this back to plate moderate maybe. The rotator, it sounds very good on the harmonium. It can sound like a Leslie organ or something. You can do it fast or slow. You can change how much is mixed in. You can change the tone. The tone is either bright or mellow. I really encourage you to explore more, try out all the effects, see what all of them do. Visit our user manual to find out more about what every control on this page does. But we hope that we've included a lot of options for you to create some really unique sounds. If you come up with something really cool, we'd love to hear it. Please send it to us. And thank you for watching through all these videos. We really hope you enjoy working with the harmonium.